ضيوفنا الكرام، رحبوا معنا بمورين غانون، محرر أول بعرب نيوز من كندا ومتحدثي هذه الجلسة.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Maureen, Gannon, Senior Editor, Arab News, and her panel.
Hello, everyone. Be kind to us. Parkour is a very hard act to follow. We were sitting backstage and we watched him flip over. We thought there's no way we can compete with that. But that said, I feel honored to be here. I really admire the work of the Misk Foundation, and I feel really lucky to have a group of such interesting and diverse panelists to talk about an issue that everyone is talking about. I've heard it mentioned in quite a few sessions today, and that is social intelligence. Now, how are we going to define that? First, I'll start by saying that I think social intelligence is a bit more invisible and hard to measure than actual IQ intelligence. This is EQ we're talking about. And it's more like how I would say street smarts, how we react to the world and the people around us, and how we control and pay attention to our emotions and our place in the world. So I'm going to talk to our guests about that today, but I'll start first by introducing Adeeb Alblooshi, the UAE's youngest inventor. Jihad Bnimoussa, founder of Inspirecorp, which is a mental health social enterprise focused on prevention in Morocco. Duleesha Kulasooriya, managing director of Deloitte Center for the Edge in the States. And Penny Low, founder of Social Innovation Park in Singapore, where she has been a member of parliament. So we're going to have a chat about how we would define social intelligence. Jihad, do you have some thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, social intelligence and emotional intelligence is what I spend every day of my work doing. Well, first, they're inseparable. Emotional intelligence is very much the basis of social intelligence, because once we understand ourselves and we have the ability to understand what we feel, what we think, and how we behave, and how that connects to the world around us, then we're able to build better relationships and solve conflict and just interact with the world in a better way. So they're very much interrelated, and the way we normally develop them is very organic. So it's, for example, playing in the playground as children with other young kids and having to negotiate over who's going to be the goalie and who's going to be playing forward, and kind of navigating these kind of conversations. It's in the home with siblings and things like that. So the process can be organic, or it can be that we develop it by learning these skill sets, because at the end of the day, they are skills.
Okay. Penny, what would you say social intelligence is?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. I absolutely agree with what Jihad has said. But I think, to have real good social intelligence, we've got to start with the self first. Social intelligence, to me, it's the quotient, right? SIQ. Social intelligence quotient. So people with a high SIQ would probably be people who know themselves quite well, are authentic, and they are also somebody who listens to others, and in so doing, being non-judgmental and open to receiving the information, which is intelligence, actually, and then make use of the information itself to form a connected relationship. So is that too complicated?
Yeah, no, I think
so in other words, I mean, simply put, I think people with high SIQ, social intelligence quotient, are people who are authentic to themselves, authentic in the way that they relate to others, and also, authentic in wanting to connect with others. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. You look like you wanted to say something.
No, I think they actually covered what you can say about. I was reflecting in the morning. The first panel kept talking about skills, and many a times they reiterated it's not just about the hard skills, but it's all the soft skills. So what we're talking about here are actually the soft skills of how we interact with each other as human beings.
And Adeeb, I mean, inventors are known for their very high intelligence, and some famous ones maybe not so much for emotional intelligence. Why do you think it's important for us to have social intelligence?
Well, it's important to some and important to other people more. And it's a very complex topic, but to me, social intelligence is important because if you're trying to communicate with someone, if you're trying to understand what they're saying, social intelligence is important. If, say, someone has gone through a loss and they're explaining to you, their feelings and everything, that's where social intelligence also comes in. Understanding where they are currently, understanding where their emotional state is, where their mental state is, that's all social intelligence. And to me, as the type of person I am, it's very important. If I go to a discussion with a teacher, if I go to a meeting, a dinner party, social intelligence all comes into play in those moments. When even talking to someone, even just understanding what they're saying, that's social intelligence. You could also perceive it as adaptation. There's water, there's a cup of water. You'll adapt to doing certain things, either drinking it from the bottle or pouring it into the glass. Whatever you adapt to do, it's social intelligence.
Okay, that's a good answer.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Because it's that adaptability that gives us resilience, that we're able to go through stuff that is difficult, that is challenging, but we can bend instead of breaking. So that's a very great point.
Duleesha, your organization has a study I believe you'll be talking about here tomorrow called Unlocking Human Potential. How does it relate to that?
So to give some context, the Center for the Edge, which I work with, we help large corporations transform because the context of the world has changed so much. And as we're doing this, we're thinking, well, it's not just large corporations that need to transform all of us, you, me, we all need new practices to transform ourselves. And we did the research and we wrote a paper called Unlocking Human Potential. And essentially, we came up with 6 meta practices. 3 of them, to use the analogy of a tree, are things that ground us. Like understanding your core values, who you are, who's your community, what do you stand for. The other 3 are about exploring new things, being uncomfortable, exploring edges, shaping serendipity, making space for the unknown. But essentially, all of those things are around unlearning and learning new things. And it's about being more human. So in the world we're moving into, robots and automation are going to do most of what we do today. What's going to be left for us are the things that are much more human. Creativity, empathy, vulnerability, humor. Those are the things we need to learn.
Okay, Jihad?
I think that's a great point because at the end of the day, we can categorize them as soft skills, and that places them almost in a box where it looks quite neat, but in reality it's a part of our everyday lives. These are things that we encounter from the moment we wake up until the moment we go to sleep, and every experience that we go through, we integrate it and it changes us and it transforms us. So are we aware of these transformations? Are we reflecting on them? Are we aware of how it's changing, how we're interacting with our world around us? And a lot of the times we might not be, but the good thing is that we can learn how to be.
Right. Okay, what are some basic things that people can do to help build social intelligence? Penny, do you have some thoughts about that?
I must confess that I don't have a very high social intelligence here because I'm not actually hearing the discussion.
Okay.
There's a very loud, should I say,
Can I
echo
fix
kind of
that?
thing? Yeah. So I might have to ask you to sort of repeat your question and all.
Sure, that's
yeah,
fine.
sorry about that.
My question is basically, what can people do if they don't have a lot of social intelligence? Are there some specific things that people can do to help them build it?
Perhaps the precursor to the question is, would social intelligence be required in all situations? And my sense is that probably good to have, but not a must-have for everything. So for example, there are jobs that you interact with machines and that you don't need a very high level of social intelligence, right? But you need to have a high level of algorithm intelligence, right? When you need work with machines and all, then I think your point about how the world is evolving, and therefore, we might have to really entrench or grow ourselves in areas that robots cannot overtake us in, right? And perhaps those are the areas where social intelligence would be extremely important. So for me, I think if a person are in those capacity and in those jobs or in those parts of life that they want to grow themselves to have a very high level of social intelligence, to have keen connections with, his peers, his community, and his family even, right? Then I think a few things they can do. The first, like I said earlier on, is that first, know yourself. Know yourself first. The first skill set is if you can be honest with yourself and start to peel yourself like an onion and say, okay, this is what makes me happy, this is what makes me unhappy, this is where, I normally react in a certain way, this is where, it crosses the boundary for me, and then this is where my value system is, this is where my ethos are. I think when you start to sort of peel yourself like an onion and get down to the core of what makes you happy, what makes you fulfill, then I think you got the first basis of building this skill done. Because unless you know yourself, as the Sun Tzu Art of War say, know thyself, know thy enemy. Enemy in this case is really just about overall environment. 100 battles fought, 100 battles won. So you must first know yourself, right? And then the second skill set is where you know your environment. And that's where I mentioned this thing about listening, right? Developing a very keen listening skill is important. Because when we try to sort of multitask in our everyday, right, by being on the WhatsApp and then at the same time send out a tweet and then, listening to music and then perhaps, trying to talk to somebody right in front of us, we have very divided attention that doesn't give us the focus on the issue and seeing things as they are, right? And when that happens, there's a lot of prejudgment. With prejudgment, it's very difficult to have an authentic and sincere relationship with anyone. So the second part really is to give undivided attention to the person opposite you. And when I say undivided, it means with your eyes on that person, with your ears on that person, with your heart on that person and what they say, their gestures, their verbal and non-verbal communication, and not prejudge the conclusions. I think these, to me, would be the two skill sets that, could be developed. First, knowing yourself, and then knowing the other party. And once that so-called frequency is established, the rest actually just connects through very quickly. So it might be more complicated than it seems, but it's quite simply, when do we know we connect with someone? Quite simply, when we like that someone. And why do we like that someone? Because we understand them, or at least we think we understand them in the same light as us. And when that, like is there, there is trust, right? A higher level of trust. And when there is trust, you can talk about almost anything. And that's where, like I said, collectively, the sum of these individual trust sets, the sum of this individual, social intelligence gives us a collective sum of society that has either high trust or low trust, high social intelligence or low social intelligence. Yeah, I hope that, I didn't make it too complicated.
No, that's very well said. Duleesha, we were talking earlier about technology and how that has become a bit of an obstacle to what Penny's talking about. Do you want to address that a bit?
I was just going to add to what Penny said. It's really hard to have moments like what you said, where two people could really engage in a level, because we are so caught up in our devices today. Can I poll everyone in the audience? In the last month, can you raise your hand if you spent one whole day, 24 hours, without looking at your phone? Really, at least? Well, there's some of you at least. That's a very good practice. It's a digital detox. And we actually do it not just for the phone, but TV, nothing. We did it one day a week, but we gave up after about 3 weeks because we couldn't take care of the kids. They would always annoy us. The only way to stop them was to turn the TV on. It's very hard to do this. And that's part of the problem, right? We're so caught up with our devices, and we keep pushing for efficiency, right? Efficiency means we don't want to interact with other humans. Maybe it's good to stand in line. Maybe it's good to talk to other human beings and figure out, maybe it's good to get annoyed once in a while and figure out how to interact. We're losing that skill because we hide behind screens and we hide behind other ways of not having to communicate with each other.
Did you find your digital detox made a difference?
It does. You had to figure out how to get somewhere without a map, which means you might need to ask someone. You might have to actually talk to people rather than text them or do something else. It's good practice. It's not easy.
I actually go for silence retreats at least twice a year, between 5 to 10 days, where you're completely off the phone, off conversations even. But I often find that at the end of that, I become a lot more connected with myself. And for some strange reason, when I step out of those silent retreats to connect with people, I find that people also open up to me a lot more. Maybe because, I've detoxed, so to speak, using your term, right? And people could see me as I am. And I think that's actually very important in human communication. And if you ask me which is the part that the robots cannot replace, I think this is the part that robots cannot replace us. And if we lose it and talk to robots instead, then I think there's a possibility that the robots might overtake us because they talk faster than we can talk to each other. Yeah.
Now, Penny, I think you said you've traveled to 90 countries, and Duleesha, you were saying that traveling alone is a useful skill.
Yeah, that's another travel hack, and I've only done this a few times. If you travel by yourself, you're much more open to meeting people and talking to them. But if you're with someone else, you just stick to each other because there's a comfort zone. Have you traveled by yourself?
Of course.
And are you much more open to meeting people when you do?
I think I'm pretty open by myself or not by myself, but I think it takes conscious effort to do that. Yeah.
Adeeb, what would you say are some things that you do to practice developing your social intelligence?
Well, there's an insane amount of things that you can do to develop your social intelligence. Simple social contact on its own sometimes can improve it, but if we're talking large-scale improvement, maybe partake in meetings more often. That can help you understand how you can pick up a few things from people who know what they're doing with social intelligence. There's a lot of things. That's why I'm trying to figure out the best example here. Talking to a group of people at once, that could help you improve your social intelligence. Things like even watching people explain it if you ask someone a difficult question and watch them explain it, that can help improve your social intelligence. And honestly, it's mostly just talking to people, directly or indirectly. So through your phones or face-to-face, but it helps improve your social intelligence. But in my opinion, it's always best to talk to someone face-to-face, because then they can't hide, you see everything that's going on. You see how long it's taking them to reply back. You can see if they're nervous or anything. And it's best to talk to people to improve your social intelligence. It's best to talk to them face-to-face, in my opinion.
Okay, good answer. Jihad.
I mean, the development of social intelligence and emotional intelligence, because of how related they are, it does begin at its root from modeling. You model other people's behaviors, that's how you naturally learn. But at the same time, when right now, as they've said, like, our age is very different. Young people aren't getting these kind of opportunities as often because a lot of their social interactions are online. And for digital natives, it's a lot more difficult to tell them, you know, like, remove this organ that is part of your body and put your phone down. So it's a lot easier to then show them the way and show them alternative methods for them to develop social and emotional intelligence in a way that is more suitable for their lives today. And that means that the methods are depending on the crafting of these kind of experiences. And there are amazing organizations who are doing this kind of work. I mean, an example would be Deloitte and their new project that they're working on. World Merit does that with young people in empowering them to take action around sustainable development goals. So instead of just being like, hey, go take action, it's more about training them and making sure they're prepared. We do this in Morocco with schools as well. And it's basically about making sure that young people have a creative way that is activity-based and entertaining and relatable, that they connect with, but at the same time is giving them these kind of emotional and social skills.
Okay. Duleesha, why would you say then social intelligence is so crucial to the skill set of the future?
Like I mentioned before, most things that we do today will be done by robots and automation. And most of the work left to be done by us are the work that's much more human. There's another aspect in the sense that the world is also becoming much more global. So all of you and all of us are going to have to work with people from different cultures from all over the world. And that too requires what Penny said, one, understanding yourself, knowing who you are, but also being sensitive and being able to read someone else's culture, to understanding where they're coming from, and being able to interact with them. Teams in the future are going to be much more global. By the way, there's also a social intelligence of how we interact in our devices. And most of you are likely more conversant with that than me, at least, maybe us. Because there is an intelligence in what you'd say, and like all the little things that people do on text. There's a way of communicating there as well. So there's an evolving form of communication, but overall, we have to learn how to interact with each other more and more, because that is going to be a requirement to do better both personally and at work.
Okay.
If I could just add to that, there's perhaps one aspect of social intelligence that we didn't really talk about yet, and that is something that concerns, I think, everyone here. If you look at business and politics today, right, or even NGOs for that matter, things have really changed. In the past, it's all about, in the case of businesses, in the past, it's always been about shareholders' concern, right? If my shareholder feels that I should go down this track itself, I should purchase from this person, I should sell to that person, I should advertise it in this way, that way, chances are you do it because, you've got a single bottom line, which is for profits, right? And like what Milton Friedman says, right, business is for profits, and that's how it creates, social good, right? But today, the scenario has changed a lot. Today, you cannot be, if you're a CEO of a big company, for example, you're a CEO of a big pharmaceutical company, you cannot be just concerned simply with your shareholders. You have stakeholders. You need to get the community to agree with you that you're doing things ethically. You need, of course, the authorities to agree with you that this is going to be for greater social good, right? FDA would approve. If it is only for your own profitability, then chances are your drug might not get passed, and even if it get passed, the people might not actually agree with it, and they may even give you a nice piece of love letter on the internet, and that's called your citizen blogger, right? So today, I think it has changed a lot. You have to, if you do not have that social intelligence, meaning, to know how people will be reacting to what you say, or, the innovation or whatsoever that the company is putting out, then you may not actually be doing risk management. Similarly, I don't know whether it's a bit sensitive to talk about this, but, a person like Trump, right? Does he have highs or low social intelligence? Was he able or not to mobilize people? How did he do it? What is it that he has that we don't? I mean, for those of us who love or hate or have no feelings towards him, I think he's a very good and interesting case study for us to sort of, get to know and understand what is it, what social intelligence does he have in order to move the masses to vote for him.
Well, he does have social intelligence. Unfortunately, it's fear. He's using fear as a tool.
Right. So it can be in many, different forms. But my point really is that I think social intelligence is going to play a greater and greater role in the world going forward. The reason being, first, we will need to, or we will be forced to interact with each other more and more through peer-to-peer communication, through our communications of our role with society and community at large, and also, the fact that if we don't want to become robots, we want to remain human, then the emotion, the social part becomes of a higher value, right? So I think we have to really, look at how social intelligence is currently being used, to the betterment or the opposite of society. Yeah.
And then, so on a larger level, do you think that we can actually design societies to produce more socially intelligent citizens?
Yeah.
I don't know whether we can create society so that people can learn that as a skill set, as part of skill future or lifelong learning kind of thing. I think, of course, you can design something like that. But I would say that society has always been designed by people with high social intelligence.
Well, I think we can. I think starting from schools and a lot of the work that you do, and you get kids and you get humans to interact with each other more, to listen to each other to solve their problems, rather than stopping them from conflict. Like, let them resolve it. You do a lot of that work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's looking at the individual not just as if they're in silo, but rather at all the ecological systems that are around them. You look at the individual, how their family life is, how their school environment is, their peers, the culture around them, the interactions between these systems. And if you can integrate interventions into each of these systems, then you can kind of effectively shift it and move the needle in terms of the change that you're creating in society. So it might not be like, kind of wipe the slate clean, tabula rasa, and kind of redesign society, but it's more of having a vision of what you're trying to reach, and then looking at the individual holistically within the society that they're placed in, and that includes the digital world and their virtual selves, and making sure that whatever strategy that you create and whatever plan that you have to create change is working at every level, and it is integrated, and it is interdisciplinary and transversal.
Adeeb.
I think it's very possible to migrate social intelligence to societies, but obviously it will take time. I would say if we implemented, for example, a new curriculum which involved social intelligence, students would learn and further develop upon their skills in social intelligence. Yeah, they'd further develop their skills on that, and that could really push towards a society which we are envisioning. We could really push towards a society with this kind of thing, where this is with everyone, where every single student and parent has gone through the curriculum, and this would work. I think it's very possible. Even on an international scale, this is possible, and it's something that would require some work, but I'm sure most people or everyone in the crowd would agree that this would be very useful if we added it or slipped it into the curriculum.
It would be a fun course.
Oh yeah, it would definitely be fun.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we were going to try to take some questions, if that's possible. Does anybody have any questions for our panelists? Oh, number 3.
So my name is Faiza Makhdoom, and my question is to Adeeb Alblooshi. Because you and me are from Generation Z, how Generation Z can gain more valuable experiences to translate the real meaning of being smart? Thank you.
Okay. Do you mean people around my age?
Sorry, can you clarify the question?
Like, give an advice to the people who are under 18 years old who want to participate and gain more experiences.
Okay,
Some
well,
advice for people your age, basically.
I think it's something that would be very useful for them to improve upon in this current age. It's something I'm currently improving upon. And ways to do it, well, there's a lot of ways to improve upon it. You could always watch, for example, you could watch your parents go into a meeting. You could you could watch how they run the meeting. You can always go to some sort of, say, even if you were young, a birthday party, there'd be a person there who was running the party, someone who's got the attention of everyone in the room, possibly someone telling a story. That person you can tell, that person you can learn from. You can tell from the people who are magnetizing everyone around them that they know what they're doing. And so before you can start going into really advanced type things, you'd have to start simple. With everything this applies, you have to start simple. So understanding the little things people do, that's how you can gain experience. You could always use technology positively. You could go on Google, go on trusted psychology websites and learn more from there. But don't let me limit you on what you can do. You can do anything, really. You can use any of the wide array of tools available to you and improve upon yourself in whatever way you find worthy. Anything you choose to do to improve yourself, with social intelligence-wise, you don't need to have the best equipment. You don't need to have the newest iPad. You don't need to have the newest laptop. Even if you've just got one little book explaining this, you can learn from this one little book and be an expert, a worldwide expert in 20 years. So don't give up, do not limit yourself, and no matter what happens, never, ever, ever lose faith or give up.
Very well said. One more question I think we have time for. Number 4.
Hello, my name is Noura Al-Sultan. I'm very young and I'm a high school student, actually. My question is for Adeeb and Jihad. The question is, how did you manage to affect on adult, especially, to let them, like, you are founders, and I want to know the steps that, how did you manage to affect on adult people by using the social intelligent? Thank you.
So if I understand the question correctly, it's how did we manage to kind of take the steps to become founders of our companies, even though the adults that we might be surrounded with might not be as supportive of that, right?
I think that's what she's saying, yeah.
That's a great question because, to be honest, if in my case it was and this is something that I was actually talking to Adeeb about, is that if you keep waiting to kind of find the thing that you're dreaming of and it doesn't exist, then you're just going to be waiting forever. So you have no choice but to go and create it. And that does put you in a position of vulnerability, and that does mean that you are putting yourself outside your comfort zone and you are walking towards fear. But it is very rewarding because whatever it is that you dream and you wish had existed, you can just create it. And that's the case with a lot of the work that I do today, which is the curricula around social and emotional intelligence. It's stuff that I wished existed as a teenager. It's things that, even the way that we do it, the way that we develop it, how it's fun and engaging and creative and beautiful. And that's just because I wish it had existed, and when I was looking for stuff like that as a teenager, I would read, self-help books and business books and all kinds of books, but they weren't exactly what I was searching for. And instead, I found that information in the field of psychology in a very fragmented way. So I'm collecting the pieces together and kind of creating what I wished had existed before. So I would say, listen to yourself and listen to your fear. Whenever you feel that you're afraid of something and you feel that something is really comfortable and safe, walk towards the fear, because that's where you're going to grow, and that should be your compass to help you make decisions and help you move forward.
Great answer. Adeeb, I think you want to wrap up, and also I would try maybe by answering that question, and then you had some closing remarks as well.
Well, to be honest, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more with what Jihad has said. And for my closing remarks, I wanted to issue a challenge, actually. A challenge to the leaders of today, the leaders of everything today. I wanted to challenge you to empower the leaders of tomorrow, today. Tomorrow, you can leave the faith of the world that you have created for us to us. But if you take your time and you sit there and improve and try to empower leaders that could make positive change in the future, if you could do that today, you would be creating the future for your children, and their children after that. So my challenge to you is to empower the future leaders of tomorrow.
I think we'll leave it with that. Over to you, Adeeb. Thank you, everybody. We're gonna go.